You hold a scuffed golden cane. A boy king's weight leans in. What did purity cost his bones? Gold glows, but the grip end is dull. 1,000 small frictions have bitten it smooth. Beside it, a stiff linen knee splint waits, quiet hardware for a sacred body. Resin breath hangs in the embalming room. Flies drum against painted cedar. The court praises pure blood. The cane answers with dense warmth and wear. Pure gold is soft. Strength lives in alloys. Was the lineage forged, or left to bend? If a throne needs braces, what debt did the doctrine of purity write into a child? According to the KV-62 inventory recorded after the tomb's opening, walking sticks and support gear were logged with royal regalia. The crown is not a man. It is a son of gods, rehearsed in incense. Priests tune the throne like a lyre. Each string is lineage, each note a vow. Ancient writers report sacred unions inside palace walls, framed as cosmic balance. If heaven is a family, the court copies it, siblings encircled by hymns and seals. What happens when devotion narrows choice to a single hallway? Power hoards itself by folding inward. Estates move along veins, not roads. Temple land, tax rights, and processions hinge on names, not merits. A bride is a contract written in gold leaf. A groom is an office with ribs. Scholars debate how widespread close-kin marriage was across dynasties and regions. The machinery is clear. When blood stays inside, property does too. Law speaks in ritual. Legality wears perfume. Scribes map inheritance like irrigation channels, branching toward shrines and treasuries. A sister queen may sanctify her brother's reign, or trap him in a jeweled cul-de-sac. Ceremony promises cosmic order. Appetite for certainty becomes a leash. If a dynasty fears rivals, does it also fear fresh air? Midwives and healers stand in shadowed doorways, mixing oil with prayer. Evidence suggests high infant death, and maternal peril kept lines fragile. A smaller marriage pool tightens risk. Each christened cradle mirrors a dice cup. Incantations thread through poultices. Bureaucracy threads through lullabies. Can ritual thicken blood without thickening fate? When the body becomes a ledger, suffering pays the interest. Priests guard thresholds. Courtiers audit wombs. Kings recite as patients. The doctrine of purity shines, but the clinic waits behind the throne. If monarchy is a temple of bones, who carries the offerings tomorrow? What would you choose, holy blood or a healthy air? Hymns and titulary from Thebes and Memphis, late bronze and Hellenistic decrees, genre bias and ideological framing noted. We enter a cool room of proofs. Cedar, linen, and dust breathe together. Light strikes gold leaf. Beneath it, wood swells with old sweat and time. A ledger hand once numbered each thing. The ink still whispers on tags. Evidence does not shout. It accretes, fibers dense, and ratios of wear. What carries truth better here? A gleam or a scuff? First, the portraits that set an empire's mirror. Amarna reliefs lean into softness. Full lips, narrow torsos, flowing bellies. Style may preach a theology of nearness. Bodies melt toward a tin's heat. Scholars debate whether elongation speaks disease, divinity, or policy. If ideology edits bone on stone, how should a doctor read a hymn? Painted profiles repeat like a litany. Father, mother, children beneath a sun disk. Hands cradle infants with reverent gravity. Fingers bloom like lotus. Human warmth is palpable. Diagnosis remains missed. Confidence here is low. Art is a consenting liar when kings require a moral. Can an aesthetic become a mask the clinic cannot lift? We turn from walls to crates, silent, factual, unadorned. In KV-62, walking sticks crowd the inventory like reeds in flood. Grip ends are abraded, ferrules are nicked. Some shafts bow slightly. Evidence suggests frequent use, not pure ceremony. Confidence medium. Why polish a cane by prayer unless a body asked it daily? Beside them, narrow sandals sleep with sewn repairs. Linen braces curl like winter leaves. Resin stains their folds. A traveling chair muddles the border between throne and crutch, where patterns become testimony. They do not flatter gods. If weight left honesty in wood, what story does each groove retell? A chest bears numbers, not poetry. Its order calms the room. Labels note material, length, and fine spot. The system itself is a witness. Archaeology turns reverence into counts, myth into columns. This cool grammar resists panic and rumor. Is restraint here the bravest form of speech? Chain of evidence. From tomb to lab, we begin with context, where the object lay, and with what neighbors. We log condition, tool marks, and repairs, then draft drawings against scale. Imaging follows. Photography, radiography, CT, each layer catching what the last missed. Sampling comes last, under gloves and chain of custody seals. Contamination is the stealthy thief. We triangulate across sources. No single clue gets a crown. Confidence rides on provenance, not charisma. Method note. Provenance, handling, limitations. CT hums like a low hymn. The scanner circles a long, quiet king. Skull sutures, vertebrae lines, sinus voids. Geometry replaces rumor. Evidence suggests a left leg fracture near death. Confidence medium. Head trauma as murder fades under cross-sections. Confidence high. When rumor loses a weapon, who mourns the thrilling lie? Feet tell stricter stories. Bones argue with sandals by shape. Some images indicate deformities consistent with impaired gait. Confidence medium. A staff becomes both emblem and instrument, half symbol, half prosthetic. The boy king may have leaned more on wood than on ceremony. If the scepter trembled, did the realm learn to tremble with it? The lab adds whispers, smaller than dust. DNA extracted from bone and resin-touched linens enters the lattice of alleles. Results suggest close-kin parentage within the royal line. Confidence medium. Independent replication is limited. Contamination remains a contested shadow. Can numbers carry incense without absorbing its smoke? A parasite's genome sometimes peaks between royal markers. Ancient malaria signatures have been reported alongside kinship links. Interpretation stays careful. Comorbidity tangles cause and timing. Medicine dislikes shrines. Shrine logic dislikes hedges. When a fever meets a doctrine, who writes the death line? We widen the circle. Dusty shelves hold temple rosters and ration notes. Ostraca list grain for midwives. Guardians of deliveries appear and vanish. Palace ledgers track textiles to regalia workshops. Cloth becomes liturgy. Ancient writers report sibling unions among later queens. Reliability varies. Whose quill served truth and whose served theater? A decree frames marriage as cosmic maintenance. The Nile must mirror the sky. Economy is braided into family, and family into law. Property flows along names. Priests police the channels. Scholars debate how far practice followed doctrine across provinces. If a record cleans its own footprints, what error becomes immortal? We marry the layers: portrait, object, image, genome, and note. Triangles close. Confidence brightens where paths converge. The cane's wear aligns with CT's story. The sandals nod along. Art retreats to symbol. Biology refuses to. Do you trust the chorus more when each singer breathes alone? A moment of caution settles like dust after steps. Close kin is a gradient, not a switch. Pedigrees can blur in both directions. Sample sizes are small. Labs keep a strict humility. Chronology matters. Rains overlap like palm fronds in wind. Is patience the most radical method in a fevered field? We return to the boy king's chamber for a second look. Brittle resins glisten like cooled sap. The air tastes of old sweetness. Everything here moves us to pity, but pity must not steer. Claims stay graded. High, medium, low. So ethics keeps company with proof. What good is truth if its tone turns cruel? Credibility aside, lands with the weight of ink. Carter's logs, object numbers, and photographs stand beside modern scans. Hymns and reliefs are read as ideology before pathology. Cross-lab notes temper seductive charts. Record, KV62 excavation notes, object-ware studies, CT Consortium 2005, Genetic Study 2010. Subsequent critiques noted, the chamber exhales. Our eyes readjust to daylight. We carry out not certainty, but a calibrated range. Evidence suggests fragility met expectation, and expectation shaped care. The crueler reading, the spectacle, stays outside our door. Which layer convinced you most? The scuff, the slice of CT, or the alphabet of alleles? A crown feels heavier when a cane bears half the burden. His palms learned the wood's grain before they learned the feel of papyrus decrees. Court painters showed him upright. The grip told another truth. Evidence suggests a leg deformity shaped his gait and schedule. Confidence medium. Does ceremony hide weakness or cradle it? The human view. A teenager rehearsing coronation lines, eyes darting to the cane at his side. Lantern light plays on lapis inlay. Attendants whisper about pacing, not politics. A kingdom sees him as a son of a 10. He feels like a patient in a robe of light. If divine blood limps, does it still sanctify? The staff becomes a scepter in procession, two symbols welded in one. Structure lens. A narrow marriage loop funnels traits like water in a clay jar. Priests guard the rim. Nothing spills except to approved lips. The jar holds power, but also the minerals of fragility. Inheritance and alliance lock into place like fitted stones. Does strength come from the seal or from the flow? Bridge. These same seals would later be pressed into wax in another dynasty. Another palace, another pair of siblings, another throne. Inbreeding risk in closed loops. In genetics, the coefficient of inbreeding measures the chance two alleles are identical by descent. When marriage circles tighten, the number climbs. Recessive disorders find clearer paths. Small populations risk crossing a threshold where traits, good or ill, become fixed. Historical cases show such loops can preserve titles yet thin resilience. In our case, the royal loop was both fortress and funnel. Genetics term, coefficient and sample size. Claim, a sister's hand could both crown and corner a brother. Evidence suggests Ptolemaic sibling marriages balanced priestly approval with Hellenistic display. Confidence medium, a queen calculates between heart, temple, and council chamber. Love is weighed on scales of tax and war. If family is state, how does one divorce? Human lens, a banquet in Alexandria's marble halls. Music and incense mask the rustle of scrolls. She smiles at poets, but her eyes track the high priest across the table. The city outside hears only the festival drums. Inside, every gesture is ledgered. Can intimacy survive when it is public policy? Structure lens. Greek law meets Egyptian priesthood. Both agree on the currency of blood. Temple taxes fund campaigns. Marriage becomes a treasury with a pulse. Bloodlines are pipelines, closed to outsiders, open to power. Do pipelines nourish or choke the city they serve? Bridge. Away from marble, we find the hands that catch heirs before they break. Claim. Midwives, nurses, and court physicians stood between doctrine and disaster. Evidence suggests temple-trained healers blended ritual with practical care. Confidence medium. A queen's labor might open with a hymn and end with herbal compresses. If gods and herbs meet at the bedside, which gets the credit? Human lens. A candlelit chamber in Memphis. A difficult birth halts the night. The healer chants while mixing oil from the temple garden. An assistant counts the mother's breaths. Outside, a herald waits to record the sex. Inside, survival is the only record sought. Is saving a life an act of loyalty or quiet rebellion? Structure lens. Laws outline succession. Rituals prescribe offerings. Medicine adapts in their shadow. The system is a vessel, carrying both the fragile and the fortunate. A dynasty's survival may hinge less on marble decrees than on hands that never sign them. Does history remember the vessel or only the wine? Bridge. From these unseen rooms, we step into a corridor of reread evidence, where a single test can shift the balance of a reign. The lab's hum is familiar, but today the script changes. A reanalysis of stored DNA, cleaned with newer protocols, yields a subtle divergence. Alleles once thought shared by both parents show an unexpected outsider's mark. Evidence suggests the kinship was still close, but perhaps not as closed as painted. Confidence medium. If purity was less perfect, what else in the record bends under its own weight? A scholar in the archive rereads Carter's original notes, this time side by side with CT slices. A fracture pattern in the left femur, long tied to an accident, shows new signs of post-mortem breakage. The cause of death theories tilt. Infection remains possible, but murder fades further. Does a shift from intrigue to illness dull the story, or sharpen its truth? On the art side, pigment analysis of Amarna reliefs shows corrections. Elongated skulls shortened, hips narrowed. Scholars debate whether this was an aesthetic reversal or a quiet burial of ideology. If the body was revised in stone, was it also revised in memory? The balance changes when we remove a weight of assumption. Temple decrees invoking cosmic unity lose some of their grip. Marriage may have been strategic, not purely ritual. Evidence suggests that flexibility, however small, entered the fortress. Confidence, low to medium. In politics, is a crack always a flaw, or can it be a door? We step back. The boy king's story remains, one of fragility under expectation. But now, the alloy seems less pure, stronger perhaps than dogma allowed. The cane still stands in his chamber, mute, worn, and loyal. What if its scuffs were not signs of inevitability, but of endurance? 2017 Reanalysis Memo. Pigment study of Amarna reliefs. CT review notes. Archival marginalia from Carter papers. The gold cane rests behind glass now, lit for tourists and scholars alike. Its grip end still bears the warm polish of a boy's hand, an alloy of flesh and rule. Empires remember crowns. Objects remember weight. Evidence suggests the dynasty's decline was not a single fracture, but a lattice of hairline cracks. Confidence medium. If power is a vessel, should we praise the pourer or the potter? Long-term consequence, the myth of pure blood weakened under foreign rule. Ptolemaic marble crumbled into Roman concrete. Temples adapted or closed. Laws once written to guard lineage shifted to guard territory. Shrines kept their incense, but the prayers spoke new names. Can heritage survive if its vessel is remade? The universal lesson is neither ancient nor abstract. Like pure gold, pure lineage resists corrosion but snaps under strain. Strength often hides in mixtures, alliances across borders, unions beyond kin. If resilience is the goal, the alloy is the wiser choice. Do we see this in our own politics or only in theirs? Founder effect versus drift. Closing the loop. In small, closed populations, a few genetic traits can dominate simply by chance. This is drift. If the group descends from a limited set of founders, those traits may define the whole lineage. This is the founder effect. Over time, without new input, variation drops, risk rises. The royal line's traits were both curated and cornered by this process. A population genetics note. Founder effect versus drift. My take, today's rush to simplify history into villains and victims cheats both. Why now? Because the lure of purity still threads through modern narratives, often without its ancient costs. Behind the scenes, the pigment analysis of Amarna reliefs surprised us. Revision in stone is rarer than in scrolls. Open question. If one cane can carry both symbol and scar, what might our own tools reveal in 1,000 years? Next video vote. Should we follow the trail to the Ptolemaic queens or to the workers who carved their myths? Subscribe and notify. Let's keep the record alive.